Hi, everybody. It's Miss Patty, and today is my last CNN 10 for the school year, Wednesday, May 27th, 2020. Okay, and Carl hasn't released May 27th episode yet, so I'm going to do a little review of some of the other ones that I found were interesting. Okay.
Back online after the Memorial Day holiday. This is CNN 10, and I'm Carl Azus. It's good to see you. We have a report on Memorial Day coming up in today's show. While summer in the Northern Hemisphere doesn't officially start until June 20th, Memorial Day is seen as the unofficial beginning of the season, and places as they reopened. A lot of folks were seen without masks and appeared.
All right, so the first thing he's going to talk about is summer activities. And you guessed it, coronavirus. All right, let's see what he has to say.
Ignoring social distancing rules, and Americans were cautioned not to let their guard down. The White House's coronavirus task force coordinator says wearing masks is crucial to keeping the disease from spreading. They help prevent droplets from someone's sneeze or cough from reaching other people. One question submitted to CNN is about whether you can catch COVID-19 by going to the pool. The Centers for Disease Control says a pool or hot tub that's well maintained and disinfected is not likely to carry the virus from one person to another, so you probably won't get it from the water. But health officials say you can still catch it from other people there, so they're advising Americans to stay at least 6 feet away from others, even at the pool. Different nations have different levels of coronavirus cases. The U.S. has confirmed the most, with more than 1.6 million positive diagnoses since the disease first arrived. Brazil and Russia have each confirmed more than 300,000 cases, and the United Kingdom and Spain have each seen more than 200,000. Nations are also at different stages when it comes to their responses, to reopen or not to reopen. That is the question many are asking, and when restrictions should be lifted. That is the challenge many are facing. Fred Pleitgen gives us an idea of how different schools around the world are cautiously welcoming students back.
It looks almost like a normal school break at this school in Copenhagen, except for the police tape dividing the schoolyard. Just one of many measures meant to keep kids from bunching up and prevent the spread of the coronavirus, the head of secondary education says.
If you follow the guidelines given, if you keep distance, if you make sure to wash your hands, keep sanitizing, coughing in your sleeve and not in your hand, and so on and so forth, I think we'll be safe.
Denmark started reopening schools more than a month ago, and so far, new coronavirus cases in the country haven't spiked, the government says. What's surprising, neither students nor teachers wear masks. Instead, they keep distance and wash hands and sanitize very often.
It's a bit challenging, but you get used to it after a time.
It's a different picture in South Korea. Children there not only wear masks, some are seated behind plexiglass dividers to prevent infections. Still, the country shut down dozens of schools after 2 kids tested positive. Even the first major coronavirus epicenter, Wuhan, China, brought kids back 2 weeks ago. Year 2, masks are mandatory, and the school's president says other strict measures have been taken. We rearranged the facilities on the campus to ensure each class has its own restroom, he says, its own boiled water room, and its own alternative classroom. France reopened schools last week, but has already had to shut some down again after recording dozens of coronavirus cases. Still, France's education minister says he believes the kids are doing their part. The pupils understand the social distancing rules, he says, the wearing of masks, and in some cases, they show the way, including for adults, because they understand what's at stake. Denmark says it hopes to have all students back in school next week, but physical distancing rules means they don't have space for them all. So they are getting creative, moving some classes into local churches and even the church graveyard, all to try and ensure children can have their lessons even in times of pandemic. Fred Pleiken, CNN, Berlin.
What the U.S. observes as Memorial Day was originally known as Decoration.
Okay, so the next thing that Carl is going to talk about is what? He is going to talk about Memorial Day. Okay, and up here he talked about summer activities and schools and the coronavirus. Because some countries' schools are still in session or they're not breaking at the same time that we do. Okay, so we are about to go on summer break, whereas other countries are not. All right, so next he's going to talk about Memorial
Day. It began at the time of the U.S. Civil War when mourners decorated the graves of people who'd fallen in battle. The name of the event was changed to Memorial Day after World War I. It became a time to remember troops who'd been lost in every U.S. conflict. And it's now celebrated on the third Monday in May, one of several federal holidays held on a Monday to give workers a long weekend. In normal times, parades are held. Thousands gather for public events that remember America's fallen servicemen and women. The president lays a wreath at the Tomb of the Unknowns. That's at Arlington National Cemetery in Virginia, and that somber ceremony was held as planned on Monday. But there are a number of Memorial Day traditions that look very different in the coronavirus era.
The flag that covers the casket is no longer handed to the next of kin. Instead, it's gently laid on a table next to the grave at Arlington National Cemetery. Solemn funeral honors adjusted in the age of coronavirus to pay tribute to decorated World War II veteran Robert Belch. Here, everyone wears masks, even the rifle platoon. Captain Doug Rohde has been back from Iraq for just 8 months. He now performs ceremonial duties for the Army's Old Guard unit here.
It means a lot to me that we can still be there for the families, even though, we're dealing with a lot as a country right now.
The new reality, only 10 family or friends are allowed graveside, as few troops as possible perform funeral honors. Distance is kept, masks are worn. But still, the same dignity and respect at every funeral, even with the changes. Even as on this Memorial Day, Arlington is open only to families of those buried here. Specialist Joseph Gorgas is part of the Army's elite caisson platoon, the unit that carries those killed on the battlefield, elderly veterans, and presidents of the United States.
Since COVID-19 has started, we have gone from conducting 40 missions as a platoon a week to 0.
The horses that pull the caisson still are on duty, but with extra troops required to do it right, the caissons are not being used to limit the number of people interacting.
Okay, so that was a little bit about Memorial Day and how that has changed. Okay, now the next thing before I let you go is I want to show you a video. Tomorrow, SpaceX is launching a spaceship with 2 astronauts in it, and we're going to talk about that here in a second.
The dawn of a new era of spaceflight is upon us. For the first time since the shuttle program ended 9 years ago, NASA will launch astronauts into space from American soil. But this time, NASA isn't running the entire show. It partnered with SpaceX, the private company that designed, built, and operates the Crew Dragon spacecraft. If the upcoming flight is successful, Crew Dragon will become the first commercially built ship to ever carry humans to the International Space.
Okay, so we are talking. Oh, my page is going to be a little bit messed up. All these ads too, but SpaceX flight. That's what we're going to talk about next. There we
go. Veteran NASA astronauts Doug Hurley and Bob Behnken will be those humans. Their mission is called Demo 2. The Demo 2 mission is hardly the first time you're putting your life on the line. You've been to space twice, you were a test pilot before that, but humans have never flown in this spacecraft before. So is this mission inherently riskier than others?
From a first flight standpoint, certainly there might be some greater quantifiable risk to some degree, but probably no different than any other space flight that we have flown humans on before.
Certainly, after having a child and being a father, there is a different level of preparation, both to share the mission with my son, which is something I'm super excited to have the opportunity to do. But certainly there is risk associated with a mission like this as we go forward. But I do want him to know that it's a mission that I feel strongly about, and I want him to be proud of his father.
For years, the U.S. has been paying Russia upwards of $80 million per seat to get U.S. astronauts to the International Space Station. So what is the significance of bringing these missions back to American soil?
I think there's a lot of significance, Rachel, to bringing these missions back to American soil. First, as you alluded to, kind of an alternative to the Soyuz solution that's out there, which gives us both an alternative for some political reasons, but also some robustness if we should find a problem with the Soyuz vehicle and need an alternative. But as an American, I'm just proud of what we'll be able to accomplish and fly again on an American rocket from American soil.
Now, you and Doug have known each other for ages. You were even at each other's weddings. So does that relationship, how does that help you in the cockpit, that history?
We're kind of at the point in our experience, whether it's flying in the T-38 or executing in a SpaceX simulation or approaching and docking to the International Space Station, where we, in addition to finishing each other's sentences, we can predict almost by body language what the person's opinion is or what their next action is going to be.
For us, as test pilots, Bob and I, if you told us when we were students at test pilot school that we would get an opportunity to fly the first flight of a spaceship, I think we would have told you were crazy.
Now, Doug, the space shuttle had over 2,000 switches and circuit breakers, and Crew Dragon has touchscreens and far fewer switches. And if all goes to plan, the flight will be mostly automated. So does that make your job of flying this thing a little bit easier, this new generation of spacecraft?
Well, I think in some ways it does, because you can you're more of a monitor of all the systems, and you're not using all your brain power to actually fly the vehicle. Now, that being said, the vehicle has manual capability in several phases, and we will certainly test that out.
Liftoff, the final liftoff of Atlantis.
Now, Doug, you piloted the last shuttle mission back in 2011. You're now slated to be the first commander of its replacement, the Crew Dragon. There's something quite poetic about that. So has the significance of that sunk in for you?
It's hard to believe in some ways. When somebody says it, you're like, well, that can't possibly be me, but it looks like it's going to be. So it's certainly a huge honor to even be, to get to fly to space one time, but to be, on the last shuttle flight and then the first flight since then is only in America, I guess I would say.
All right, so that is awesome. So today, when you're going to be viewing this, Wednesday at about 1 o'clock, you can tune into the Discovery Science channel, or I'm pretty sure you can watch it live on the internet as well. You should check out the flight of the SpaceX. They're going to the International Space Station in a mission called Demo 2. So I'll be watching, I'll be recording it, so hopefully you can too. Cnn10 today, and everyone have a great summer, okay? See you next year. See you in the fall.